TT Radio or NETT Radio with Brother Raka and Brother Yatazakawa on Mondays from 7 to 8 p.m. End Times is here. Stay tuned.
All right, everybody, and of course, welcome to Every Cent Counts right here on TT Radio, where we take you above and beyond. Of course, on Monday, we are joined by Garth Thomas in between this space for Every Cent Counts. And whenever Garth is here, you know it is a great Monday morning. So, Mr. Thomas, great morning to you. How are you doing?
And a great morning to you, Sir Charles, and to all our NETT Radio listeners. I am doing great, trying to do greater. It is a lot of work, though.
Well, that is it. It's a lot of work.
You know, I mean, it will be a lot of work under just normal circumstances, if there's such a thing as normal circumstances. But, you know, when there are active things in the society, especially at a high level, that looking to try and make it harder, that's a different issue at all. But a great day to us all. Remember, never settle for good, while great is available. And great is always available, especially when you have a lot of dotish people doing a lot of dotish things. I'm calling no names such as who the cap fit.
Where there's no shortage.
Who the cap, and there was a calypso.
Yeah,
who the cap fit.
No, reggae, Bob Marley.
Is that Bob Marley? Who the cap?
Yeah, who the cap fit? Let them wear it.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's Caribbean music, eh?
All the way.
So it there's a resonance. So, Charles, today I have with me in the studio someone who was here before. He was here last week. He was here before that. But I'm having him back this week because he's a Caribbean man, you know? And I think that is such an important statement. You know, it is something that we should all aspire to be Caribbean men. And I will tell you why. Because when I look at everything that is going down around us, both internationally, regionally, and locally, there's one common denominator.
Mm-hmm.
You know what that is, Sir Charles?
What is that?
The pandemic continues unabated. All right? Now, you know, I'm not talking about COVID. All right? Not talking about COVID. I'm talking about the pandemic that was there before COVID.
Right.
I'm talking about a pandemic for which there is no vaccine. All right? And I'm talking the pandemic I'm talking about. I see my guests laughing, having a good time on the show. I'm talking about the pandemic of myopia, Sir Charles. Myopia. You know what is myopia? That is short-sightedness.
Right.
You know, it is expressed in a different way. It says, you know, not being able to see the forest for the trees. Yeah. It is about being so preoccupied with all of the little immediate things that you do, you cannot look down the road. And you see, that is why, Sir Charles, I have to keep talking about what is Trinidad and Tobago going to look like, taste like, and feel like come 2050. Because, Sir Charles, when I started this talk, it was 2025.
Yeah.
So we had 25 years to look at. But you know, it's 24 now. And Sir Charles, at the rate that this year going, in a blink, it's going to be 23 years. And in a blink, we're going to be in 2050. And that is what worries me about the myopia, the short-sightedness, the inability to see beyond the end of our nose, the preoccupation with immediate gain. I see I'm going to tongue on it this morning, Sir Charles. It is this.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Preoccupation with immediate gain at any price. At any price, Sir Charles. It is the most horrific thing you could countenance if you're thinking about where is this country going to be in 2050. But let me don't go down that road too far. Let me welcome the chief evangelist for Vibes Caribbean. Listen to it, Sir Charles.
Yes.
Vibes Caribbean. Now, this is a Caribbean man we're talking about. All right. This is one of the fellas that the mighty Black Stalin. All right, the doctor. Yes, he sang about him, the Caribbean man. And Sir Charles, let me make a statement here. If any of our Caribbean neighbors, any nation within the Caribbean, if we expect in 2050 to be thriving as a Caribbean region, and you will note, I don't talk about the West Indies. When I don't talk about the West Indies, very deliberate, Sir Charles. I'm talking about the Caribbean. It may be geographically the same place, but psychologically, it's a different place to the West Indies. All right? We need to understand that extremely clearly. And if this Caribbean region, all right, does not shake off this pandemic of insularity, yes, and fighting for the short-term gains, this short-sightedness, such as we're in trouble, we are in trouble as a region. So it's not just Trinidad, we talk about Trinidad, and of course that is close to home, so it's understandable. But man alive, the Caribbean man, I want to focus on him this morning. And Sir Charles, I want to read from an interview that one of our journalists, before I talk to Adrian. Actually, Adrian, I want Adrian to weigh in on this. All right. This is an interview between Josanne Leonard, I'm sure you know that name, all right, and Gordon Roller. You know that name, Sir Charles? Sir Charles, like in there.
No, I mean, I can't remember the Gordon Roller, but I know Josanne Leonard.
All right, you must know Josanne Leonard because she was in the media.
Yeah.
All right, but Gordon Roller he is Guyanese in origin, but he had the experience of leaving Guyana and going to London. All right, and I want to read some stuff here from the interview between Josanne. Gordon died in 2023. All right, but he's one of our top Caribbean scholars and one who understood the dilemma of our Caribbean people. And Sir Charles, if we are going to move forward to a 2050 that is bright and prosperous and thriving for us all, we need to understand our dilemma. And a lot of talk about colonialism and so on, but we don't understand our dilemma. And in reading this interview between Josanne and Gordon, I saw that there were a couple of things which I felt I should highlight. So let me read, and I read. Josanne asked him a question. What was the focus of your academic pursuits? And he replied, interestingly, I was working on alienation and commitment. Oh my goodness. Whew. Alienation and commitment. In the novels of Joseph Conrad, Conrad was a Polish writer whose second language was French. Conrad ended up in the British merchant fleet, became a ship's captain who had to write exams in English, and then became this author writing in English with a syntax which was curiously French. But what was he writing about? He was writing about colonialism. He was writing about Malaysia, Africa. And then he wrote that enormous novel about Latin America after independence. I saw in his writing something that was very relevant to the Caribbean experience. Notice the Caribbean experience, the experience of colonialism. The way in which it fractured communities. I'm going to come back to that, Sir Charles. Fracturing of communities. The way in which there was this massive misunderstanding between the colonizers and the colonized. Also, I saw in Conrad something I could learn through him. Something I could learn through him about the Caribbean, about what some of the serious writers of the Caribbean like Lamin, Naipaul, Braffett, and Walcott were saying. You hear them names, Sir Charles? All right, Lamin, Naipaul, Braffett, Walcott. Sir Charles, we have had no shortage of scholarship out of this Caribbean. Okay? All across the Caribbean. And they have seen, they have experienced, and they have articulated, and we're not paying attention. Anyhow, let me go back to the interview. So that my serious study of West Indian literature probably began in England through Braffett and Walcott, through I lose the thread here. So that my serious study of West Indian literature probably began in England, though I had done some work at Mona largely on my own because at the time there wasn't a full course in West Indian literature. It was in England that I polished up an essay that I had written at Mona in 1963 called Predestination, Frustration, and Symbolic Darkness in Naipaul's House of Mr. Biswas. It won the Alan Lane Prize, an essay prize, and was in fact my first real academic publication that came out in Caribbean Quarterly. It was an undergrad piece that sort of made the big league. Another piece I wrote was called Facing Our Past, which was a comparison between capitalism and slavery by Eric Williams, In the Castle of My Skin by George Lamin, and Ruins of a Great House, and A Far Cry from Africa by Derek Walcott. Sir Charles, let me just stick a pin right there for a moment. Sir Charles, you see those book titles that I have just called out there? Sir Charles, I have not read all of them. But Sir Charles, if we hope to move forward by 2050, you see that literature crucial, that literature foundational, that literature is providing perspective that our current preoccupation with myopia does not afford us. Okay? So I am making a cry here on this program to those of us here in Trinidad and Tobago, to those of us outside in the diaspora, where, you know, in a world where reading is becoming a lost art, Sir Charles. All right? I am making a cry. People, please, 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 if we are going to move forward, we need to read. We need to wrap our minds up around the intellect of those who have gone before from the Caribbean who understood it in a way that we don't understand it because we have grown up in a different time. So, Sir Charles, those books, and you know, people could, if let me call out those books again. All right. Capitalism and Slavery by Eric Williams. I've spoken about that in this on this thing already. Facing Our Past was a comparison between Capitalism and Slavery by Eric Williams, In the Castle of My Skin by George Lamin, Ruins of a Great House, and A Far Cry from Africa by Derek Walcott. Whew. Take a note, people. Take a note of those books. All right. So, you know, that was the background for Gordon Roller. And Josanne came in. I mean, she's doing the interview. She says, something that jumped out at me when you said that West Indian literature was not a full-time course at Mona, and it was in England that you interfaced more seriously with the work of Caribbean writers. How did you view this? You saw that, and you pick up that on Melissa Charles? There was not a full-time course at Mona in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, on West Indian literature at the time. There was not a full-time course. And he had to go to England, all right, to interface with the work of Caribbean writers. So Josanne picked up on that and he said, how did you view this? And Roller replies, well, you are talking about self-definition, self-identification. When you leave the Caribbean as an individual, it's almost like a crisis in your life, because for the first time, you really have to identify yourself, say who you are, know who you are, before you're absorbed by that vast wilderness that Naipaul writes about so effectively in Mimic Men. That's what happens to his main character, who goes to England already ruined because his Caribbean experience has left him in a state of psychic devastation. Oh my God, Sir Charles. His Caribbean experience has left him in a state of psychic devastation. That's serious. That's a serious statement, Sir Charles. All right? And he goes with the hope. He goes to the England. Listen to it. He goes to the mother country. He goes to the home of the colonizers. All right? With the hope that the place he has earned, that he has heard about, will make him whole. Wow. Of course, the place destroys him and makes him empty, not whole. And I think Naipaul has been writing against that emptiness since then. So one had to deal with that business of self-identification. What was exciting though was, as you said, a lot of our writers were there. And not only writers, but painters, sculptors, musicians, and other cultural workers. These people had been hanging around England, many of them in London, and they knew each other and each other's work. Yet they had never identified themselves as a part of a body. The Caribbean artist movement brought them all together for the very first time. I think that the Caribbean artist movement was powerful in making that sort of identification happen. Wow. So Charles, I am, the time going real fast. But you see, the issues that this interview surfaced, Sir Charles, these are the issues that continue to confront us as a Caribbean people and as Trinidadians. Yes? Because those are real stuff. Sir Charles, this thing real, It's real. All right? So I want a break from this for the moment. I hope there's at least one person in the sun under the sound of my voice who, unaware of how this thing has been articulated by Gordon Roller, would come and read it and do the homework, Sir Charles, of reading these writers, these artists, these musicians, these sculptors who have all spoken out of the ethos of being a Caribbean person subject to the viciousness of being a colonial people. All right? Anyhow, you see again a little hooked up. All right? But when I read it, that is what happens here. So I have with me the chief evangelist of Vibes Caribbean and Adrian. I hope I give you some vibes there now. And I would love to hear you weigh in on this issue of the Caribbean man and his lostness and his need to find himself, identify himself, and promote himself in a world, as David Rudder says, in a world that don't need islands no more.
Are we doomed forever to be at somebody's mercy? Little keys can open a mighty door. No, I don't have the key or the keys, but I'm singing still. Greetings, Mr. Thomas. Greetings, Sir Charles. Greetings, New Era Radio Land. Thank you for indulging me. Next quote that comes to mind when you speak, Mr. Thomas. History repeats itself because nobody listens. Are the voices in the wilderness loud enough at this time? Are we continuing with the evolution and suspending the revolution? If so, for how long can we tolerate the evolution? Calypso is the voice of the people, the voice of the Caribbean, the voice that rebelled against the oppression of the colonial times. So if you want to control the people, you suppress their voices. It's that simple. This is nothing new. This is not today. This has nothing to do with drug boats. This was happening 100 years ago and 100 years before that.
Long before oil.
Yes.
Long before oil. Well, you know, Adrian, I was looking at the Calypso Fiesta in Skinner Park over the weekend. And oh my goodness, what an experience. And you know, everything we're talking about here is germane to what happened and what didn't happen. And I'm not going to go into that. But here I want to come back to the interview. All right? And Rolia says, well, Josan asked him the question, tell me a bit more about the Caribbean artist movement. Now, I am talking about this Caribbean artist movement because, in a sense, this Caribbean artist movement was a microcosm of what we subsequently came to talk about the Federation and CARIFTA and now CARICOM. So I want people to connect the dots. All right. So Josan Leonard asked, tell me a bit more about the Caribbean artist movement. How did you become involved? And Rolia responds, in the very first meeting of the Caribbean artist movement, they were asking if there was a Caribbean aesthetic. And if so, what was it? They were trying to figure this thing out. And that's how I got involved with them, because I told them, though they were going about, I told them I thought they were going about it in the wrong way. I assumed there was a Caribbean aesthetic and that there was a number of things that were characteristically Caribbean. I felt that all we needed to do was to look more closely at the work that our writers, our musicians, our singers, our performers had been doing for years. And we would be able to say what the common features were and our notion of what was the Caribbean aesthetic would emerge from there. What you say about that, Adrian? Does that sound familiar? Does that strike a chord?
That's fabulous storytelling and edutainment. Thank you for that. Of course, this story continues. We are in the story. It's for us to decide what we're going to do with the ability that we have, the capacity that we have with the tools and assets to influence the outcomes. And that's just for us to organize ourselves, to care enough to organize ourselves and find the kindred spirits, not just in Trinidad, but across the region and the diaspora. If we can connect these satellite locations, these people with these hearts, these being humans, leave the human beings alone. Human being what? I don't know. But connect the being humans, the people with the heart. Have one voice and speak together. What happens? What can possibly happen? It's our imagination. That would be our limitation.
Yeah, because we are different and yet we are the same. Because we've all had to respond to the same oppressor. And we've responded to them in different ways. And it is curious as you look across the Caribbean to see the different ways in which the response has taken place. So I move now to the next question by Josanne. And here's what she says. From your recollection of that period, and in particular the Caribbean artist movement, was it able to wrap its head around this question of a Caribbean aesthetic? Did it become more clearly defined, and was everyone comfortable? And Rolia responds, well, I don't know for sure. What it did was infuse in its members a very strong sense of community. It published a number of newsletters, for example. So one had a sense of what it was doing. Also, it moved away from being strictly London-centric. So people who were doing things under the banner of the Caribbean artist movement in other cities all over England were included. So in that sense, I would say yes. A lot of things became possible. The Arrivants by Camus Braffet was published by Oxford in 1967. You hear where we're going back? In 1967. And he had a big reading, which was recorded by Argos. So we had the beginnings of an oral documentation of our poetry that hadn't existed before. Powerful things that happened through the Caribbean artist movement. There was Aubrey Williams, the famous Guyanese painter, whose half Amerindian ancestry inspired his paintings and brought to light that aspect of Caribbean identity that many of us had not really thought about, but was very central to his work. Althea McNish, a Trinidadian fabric designer, came down for Carnival, made slides, and used the color mix of Carnival in her fabric designs. In the Caribbean artist movement, we were talking about Jamaican music that was emerging. So I would say that the Caribbean artist movement helped inspire a stronger sense of Caribbean identity. Eventually, two things happened to the movement. Firstly, a number of people who were central to it returned to the Caribbean and elsewhere. And secondly, the politics of the place, the politics of the Caribbean encounter with England took over. In the West Indian Students' Union, we were talking a lot about people who might not have previously been interested in culture, literature, or paintings, but they were interested in politics. So, I'm not going to continue the whole thing, but he said like politics, also Sir Charles, Adrian. Look at here, I didn't write this interview, Sir Charles. I did not write this interview. But here we have one of our distinguished intellectuals in the Caribbean from Guyana. All right? Showing how that as culture began to emerge and as people began to be pulled together and united in the context of culture, that politics sideline it. So Charles, politics. It seems I think Adrian that well your statement earlier on is reflected here. We keep doing the same thing over and over again. We're not learning our lessons. And I focus on that issue of community, a strong sense of community. And when I look, I've been listening to a number of interviews online with Clary Ben and with other people about the panyard, about the steel band and the panyard. And I've had the privilege of having conversations, and I've had him on the show with Patrick Roberts about the mass camp. And it seems to me, and you will give me a take on this, Adrian and Sir Charles. It seems to me that we have two institutions here in Trinidad and Tobago that, if properly developed and promoted, can bring the society together. This divisive society where the political parties feel that they have to bad talk each other all the time in order to have supremacy. Maybe what is happening in the panyards, because as I listened to those interviews, the common denominator was that it was a community institution. It wasn't owned by any ethnicity. It was a community, and the community was made up of young and old, male and female, and across the whole ethnic divide. These communities that we have. The same thing is true of the mass camp. What do you think about the mass camp and the panyard as institutions that herald some hope for the future as we move to 2050?
I'm not a great mass man.
Eh?
I'm not a great mass man. I'm not a great pan player. But my experience visiting these oases for the culture.
Oases, that's what I say, oases?
Oases.
Yes, in the midst of a barren landscape. Oases, yes.
They were safe spaces in the community where you could have integration of the various classes. Mostly certain classes were attending the panyards at a certain time. Mostly certain classes. But there was an order, there was respect. You had badgers there, you had vendors there, you had hucksters there, you had regular folk there. But there was an order.
What about all the bank clerks and the CEOs and stuff that we had there as well? Don't miss them. All of them was in the panyard. Yeah?
You're talking about in the 80s. You're not talking about in the 50s.
Okay. All right. My bad. But give us the whole scam, the whole breadth and length of it.
No, I am but a researcher myself. That this is personal interest. However, the history story, there are many better informed people who can give the history more justice than I can. The point I'm making is, in answering your question, we have culture and we have the panyards. In the panyards, and the mass camps that people can go to and get a sense of where they came from. These stories that you're talking about, the history is told in the king and queen costumes and the carnival mass bands annually. They're told in the songs that are played on the steel pans annually. We're not listening for that. We're listening for where that reverberation hits our soul in the music and respond to it in revelry. There's an abundance of music for the revelry. There's abundance of information out there that can support the revelry if it's organized properly and presented in a format that is more appealing to the people who we want to engage with. If it lays in a book it's going to remain where it is, a part of history, and it's going to be lost. We have to make efforts to create avenues for the history to come alive for the audiences that we want it to now. Edutainment is a good banner, but how are we going to do it? How are we going to activate? What are the different tactics and strategies that are going to be employed to realize that edutainment and bring the history books alive so the people can organize themselves and not be waiting on help from the powers that be.
All right. So you see, I want to go back to one of the things that Rule was saying here. And he was talking about the writers and the poets and how the poems gave rise to a certain sense of Caribbean identity. As you quite rightly say, I think a lot of people are not going to read the poems. But do you know we have a vehicle that is all about poems? All right? And it is a popular vehicle, and it's a vehicle that people listen to a lot. You know what I'm talking about? I am talking about our Calypso. All right? And I'm talking about the legacy that our Calypsonians have left. And I was happy to see that legacy is being promoted in our Carnival this year, because I think the gone but not forgotten, was it a concert? What it was? Event. All right? Brought back a lot of our old Calypso, or so many of our Calypsonians who have gone on, but they have left behind work that will continue to live forever. So that's why I say, perhaps the powers that be, if they would raise their head for a moment from the grindstone and look and see the forest in spite of the trees, they would realize that here we have some institutions. You don't have to create them, they're there already. And this thing called Carnival may just be the salvation of our people. All right? Some people might find, might take offense at my saying that, but you cannot deny that. I mean, I'm listening to a drill master being interviewed online, and a band captain, yeah? And I'm listening to when in Panorama Prelims, some of the captains and so on of the various bands, steel bands and so on. And I'm getting history, and I'm getting legacy, and I'm getting the way how the music of the pan and the calypso, how it touches each of us in a way that nothing else touches us. Yeah? And it brings about a sense of camaraderie. One of the things that came out of one of the interviews I was listening to was, a reflection that back in the day, steel bands would clash and blood would flow. But now there is a sense of camaraderie between, I'm sure that there may be some friction and stuff from dependent upon circumstances in the bands, between the bands and so on. But there is a significant rise now of camaraderie. I've heard people, leaders of various bands, speak about other bands, and not speaking about the other bands in a derogatory sense, but in a very complimentary sense. And I thought that we are, in spite of all the other crap that's going on, that there in the roots of the culture, stuff is happening. Positive stuff is happening. What do you think?
Yes, it's great. It's great opportunity, but it doesn't attract the limelight. It doesn't attract the media attention the way that it should. There's other information. Why? I do not know. But there are great stories being told in the panyards. It's great information that's being shared in the mass camps. I myself, I enjoy visiting Image Nation mass camp. You mentioned Patrick Roberts, and there's always some learnings that is happening. It can be 30 minutes that I stay there for 3 hours. There's something that I'm learning that I did not know before. And if we can spend more time, if we can find a way, just a couple of us decide, let's go to the Panyard and hang out and just see what's going on. Go to the mass camps and spend the time. And learn something. You can learn wire bending. You can learn to play the piano. Just learn the history. Just sit in the space and feel the energy.
Yes. Yes.
Take a break from the devices.
Amen to that. So tell me something, Adrian. In what ways is what we have been talking about being captured and promoted through the Vibes Caribbean event called Experience Cultivate?
Wow. Wow.
I knock you for 6 with that one or what?
just feeling the moment. I'm ready. Imagine a lush pasta steaming out of a breadfruit leaf wrapping, a beautiful pylori pyramid seeping with tamarind sauce, waiting to be explored. Imagine diving into a bowl of sancoche with all the right ingredients. Imagine choosing from some of the world's finest chocolates. Imagine a space where ginger trumps lager. Imagine a time the greatest show on earth is but an afterthought of sorts. Imagine lore for every folk. Every character has their stage. You don't have to imagine it. Experience it at Cultivate, coming this Ash Wednesday.
All right. All right. I love it. I love it. I love it. So it says Ash Wednesday?
Ash Wednesday, yes, when Trinidad has its largest number of visitors who aren't as distracted by the beads and bikini and the revelry of the Mecca of Carnival.
Yeah, that's major distraction, you know. The bikini especially.
Major damage the bikini causes. Major damage. You know the bikini swimsuit was named after the Bikini Atoll, where they did nuclear tests in the early 40s?
No, I'm not learning something.
The Bikini Atoll in the Pacific Ocean back in the 40s.
Because a tiny little piece of island in the Pacific.
That's correct. Because it was explosive to show that much skin.
All right. Well, look. Yeah, well, you edutain me there. All right. So it is little gems of information and truth that are also going to be present and pervade this experience cultivating.
Yes, sir.
And what time it is? What time it is on Ash Wednesday?
It is from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. So you get some of the day to look good and be seen, and some of the evening to hide in the shadows and pull your belly.
Yourself. Yeah.
You don't want people to see you full in your belly, stuff in your face. It's artistry, and the only Trinidad and Tobago open house held on Ash Wednesday, where you can get a journey from Christmas to Diwali. And the 4 pillars that we reflect our tourism on: culture, cuisine, arts, and entertainment. So the design is for the Caribbean people, but for the culture and the culture curious, more importantly, whether you're Caribbean or not.
So you're saying it is from 3 in the afternoon to 9 in the night.
Yes, sir.
All right, so that is 6 hours, and what it is, you're giving us 12 months and 6 hours. Is that 1260?
That's correct. 12 months of Trinbago in 6 hours of Caribbean essence.
Concentrated.
That's correct.
All right. Well, boy, I was watching the Australian Open a week or so ago, and I was amazed to find out that some of the seats, especially courtside and stuff, were selling at 5,500 US for the seat. Can you imagine that? 5,500 US for a seat at the Australian Open. So when I listen to what you just talked about there about experience cultivate, all right, about 12 months being concentrated into 6 hours with the 4 pillars of our tourism being present. This must be going to cost a pound and a crown.
What would you pay for 12 months visit to Trinidad and Tobago and experience all of the heritage and festival tourism, the art, the entertainment, all that you can get? What would you spend?
Well,
and satisfied that you spent your money well on getting on getting the largest roundabout in the world, that you're getting the finest chocolate known to the entire planet, Trinitario chocolate, the mecca of carnival, steel pan, calypso, and limbo in an edutainment format. You get to understand where they are now as it relates to where they came from. So when you hear the pan, some people hear the pan, but you feel the music, you feel the connection reverberating. You can spend thousands of dollars for 100 US, the bargain price. You can get 12 months of Trinidad and Tobago.
So you're saying that this thing is not going to cost 5,500 US? You're saying it is going to cost $100 US to experience cultivate? Is that what you're saying? Am I hearing you correctly?
That's correct. And it's not like the open where you have to sit down quietly. It's engaging. You get to move around and experience the different indulgences that we have, the different artistry, the culinary artists, the visual artists, the entertainment artists, the art forms that we have.
It's something like a pillow experience. It's something like a pillow experience with some black cake as dessert.
Yes, well,
we're
welcoming the people to our home. So we open our homes and we show them our hospitality. Do you know that our Trinidad and Tobago's capital, Port of Spain, is a UNESCO Creative City for Music inductee as of 2019?
Give me that again. I think I missed that.
Trinidad and Tobago's capital city of Port of Spain is a 2019 UNESCO Creative City for Music inductee, only one of 6 in the Caribbean, meaning that the United Nations saw it fit to recognize the hotbed of musical talent located in our little 1.3 million people country, that there's so much musical talent coming out of here that it needs to be recognized globally. United Nations thought that was the case in 2019. So we are celebrating what that means in having tassa, chutney, calypso, kaiso, extempo, new calypso, and so many other genres. Of course, pan, for sure, pan. Love the pan.
What about stick fighting?
You have somebody to put a cocktail on? What you know about bois? Yes, there's stick fighting from the Malumbo drumming school, and they are something else. They are a great asset. I saw them do their displays. They engage with from children to adults, and it's really fun to meet young people who are interested in the culture the way that they are, and they have a fabulous story. What we're doing in Cultivate is packaging these different stories that we have in our culture and doing that storytelling through that 6 hours. The bargain price of $100 US.
$100 US for 6 hours of concentrated culture from 12 for how much? It's 12 months.
12 months,
12
yes.
months of the culture concentrated in 6 hours.
Yes.
I can't recall where you say it's going to be in the savannah.
Very close. The largest roundabout in the world is the Savannah, yes, we know. At the Millfleur Heritage Site, the home of
At
the
the
national.
Millfleur Heritage Site is where Experience Cultivate is going to take place.
That's correct. That's along the Magnificent Seven, the third building of the Magnificent Seven on the Queen's
Well,
Park.
every trainee is supposed to know where that is.
Yes.
Well,
there.
It's just a little beyond QRC.
It's the third building. QRC would be the first. So you have Hayes Court next, and Millfleur would be the third.
And you say it's a heritage site.
It's a national heritage site. Yes, the National Trust is actually headquartered there.
All right.
And some people working there, so with great stories again.
All right. Well, we're fast running out of time. Can you give us an idea of who will be performing and who will be attending at this Cultivate Steal of a Deal at $100 US experience?
Okay. So for the 6 hours of the 12 months journey, we have over 30 performances listed. It'll be difficult to go through all of them. I did mention the Malambo Drumming School doing African drumming and stick fighting performances. We also have feature act Freetown Collective, that's New Calypso performing. We have Ataclan for Rapso. We have Third Base and Rembunction and Myron B for the soca and the soca parang. We have our own, very own Sir Charles doing Kaiso Kaiso.
All right.
And so many more. We have artists that you mentioned, Mr. Patrick Roberts, the band leader for Imagination Mass. His artwork would be presented at the Patrick Roberts Gallery. We are celebrating our own. We're not waiting to give them flowers when they leave us.
All right. Any special guests?
Maximus Dan performances. We have Flo PG from Martinique. So many. We have the spoken word artist Imani Miller Sorzano. We have the Highlander Steel Orchestra. We have the Gifted Youth Percussion Rhythm Section. These young boys, it's talent. They're not on the streets doing
all of this is $100 US, boy?
With food.
With food. With food.
Yes.
So here now.
We also have the traditional carnival characters by the NCC, courtesy of the National Carnival Commission. Thank you to the NCC for those carnival characters and recognizing the important work that we're doing with culture as a contributor and as a partner and affiliate. All
right. So I was going to ask you something and it gone out of my head now. All of this for $100 US. You see it have food included in that $100 US.
Yes, but more than food, you're getting to experience the culture, the food that you don't taste regularly. To have Naughty Mama homemade, making their dumplings stuffed with the boiled in it.
All right. Well, you know the time almost gone. Where I could get a ticket, boy? Where?
Vybean.com, VYBBEAN.com. And
say that again.
Our website is Vybean.com, VYBBEAN, and that's an amalgamation of Vibes and Caribbean. Vibes Caribbean is meaning Caribbean positive people. So Vybean.com, but it's even easier to call or WhatsApp 744 Vibes. That's 744-8929. Call or WhatsApp.
744. I can't say it too fast. People have to write down. 744
Vibes. VYBZ.
DYBZ.
744 VYBZ. Call or WhatsApp, and we can get your ticket to you. We can give you the information about getting it online or in person from one of our team members.
All right. Well, as usual, we run out of time. But there's so much to be said about the culture, about its potential to really unite us as a society and move us forward. We will have further conversations. Sir Charles, I didn't have any time to open up the lines today, unfortunately, but I thought there was some information here that we needed to get out. So let me thank all our listeners here in Trinidad and Tobago, out in the diaspora. Remember, Ash Wednesday, and come and experience Cultivate. It's an experience that you've never had before in such high intensity and flavor. Sir Charles.
Okay, thank you very
If you
much.
want to get on to me, I can get information to you as well. 680-3185. 680-3185. WhatsApp me. Don't call me. WhatsApp me. Send me a message.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, Adrian. All right, remember, Cultivate is on this Ash Wednesday, people. Next week, Wednesday. Get your tickets, all right? Of course, you're here on the NETT. We have our news that is straight ahead.
Nobody